Hi everybody. So today we're into healing today. So healing is the H in the Thrive model, and I'm delighted to be joined once again by the lovely Daniela Manucci, all the way from Italy. And she's as people that have tuned in before will know, she's an adoptee as well. She does similar work to myself in terms of coaching and helping adoptees heal. And so we're going to get straight into the healing, Daniela. Great to see you again.
Thank you. Hey everyone. Thank you, Simon. Ready to go?
Ready to go. Yeah, let's do this, as they say.
Yeah. Okay, so describe for us when you realized that you needed to do healing, that you needed to heal.
Okay, so I thought that business was going to be my salvation. Business was going to stop the nagging voice in my head that tells me that I'm not good enough. I thought business success was going to make that go away, and it didn't. And then around that time, when business success hadn't stopped the voice, silenced it, the adoption stuff came up for me. And the adoption stuff had never been an issue for the first 40 years of my life. And I had this massive explosion of anger directed towards my birth mother, and the feeling that I just wasn't good enough. So I wasn't good enough in business. Became, well, you've hit this business target, and that hasn't made you happy. So now the voice in your head now is like, well, what's wrong? What's wrong with you? Why were you given up? Why were you given up for adoption? What's wrong with you? And that was, I thought, well, my salvation, my healing. I need to get this sorted. I need to get to the bottom of this and be okay. Feel okay. Be happy.
Yes, beautifully said. And here's the really interesting thing is that you knew, something inside of you knew that you needed to do some healing. You didn't take the business as, so you, at first you were defining, I just want to be clear for the audience. So at first you were defining yourself by your business, right? When the business wasn't going well, you didn't define yourself with another external situation. You went internal, and this is a very big piece what people need, where we get caught. You did the inside approach. You went inside because that's, you define yourself from you. And we've said in other episodes, it's the brilliance of the diamond.
I grew up in a household that was very business focused. We talked about business a lot, right. And so I thought business was where it was at. And then I got into business and I thought, this is where it's at. So I looked for happiness outside myself. And then when the external, the external thing of business success didn't make me happy, I guess I went internal to see, well, I went into the past. I went into like how can I come to terms with the adoption stuff, because then that will make me happy. Business success hasn't made me happy. I must be feeling upset. I must find another way to heal, and to go to heal through healing the adoption stuff. But I just wanted to be happy. You know, I couldn't understand why business success hadn't made me happy. I couldn't understand why adoption had made me unhappy, and why this thought had come into my head that hadn't been there for 40 years. But it's all to do with not feeling good enough. And so not feeling good enough, wanting to be happy, wanting to heal.
Right. So to be clear, so you had the business success and that wasn't doing it
No, that didn't
to
do it.
bring you into this state of joy, right? Of
Yeah, and
your
I've been looking for that. I've been looking that for 15 years. You know, so we see the Hollywood stars, for example. You know, the actors, and they've waited tables, and then they you know, somehow they've hit the big time. They've got the Oscar, and they thought that was going to make them happy, and it doesn't. It makes them dread, and then they're like me. They're wondering what's going on, and I think a lot of the actors, you know, you see the drugs and the suicide and all that is because they've worked at something for so long, and they thought that was going to make them happy, and it didn't. So I see this in adoptees as well. They think, well, once I find my birth mother, I'm going to be happy.
Yeah, that's what I did. Exactly.
Yeah.
Everything's going to fall into place.
Everything's going to fall into place. So we're kind of like, we're delaying, we're putting our happiness on hold for an external event to happen.
Beautifully said. Absolutely.
And you know, we're waiters rather than creators, as my friend Richard Wilkins says. We're waiting for something to happen, and you know, I'll be happy when, I'll be healed when, I'll be whole when.
Right, and that's an addictive
and when never
cycle.
happens.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. When never happens because those feelings are inside us already right now, waiting for an excuse to let them out.
Right. So it's always the next piece that we're like, it's like we see ourselves on a line going forth, moving forward, and it's always the next thing. So we're always on that hamster wheel, realizing, I think, believing that, oh, okay, it wasn't the mother, it wasn't my bio mother. I have to figure out what it is until you become like it happened to you, where you're like, something just isn't quite right.
Yeah. Well, we're waiting to heal, like we're waiting for our if we, like I had a penknife when I was a kid and I cut my finger with it, right? Cut my thumb, and we're waiting to heal because we think that healing emotionally is like healing physically. And that's the dialogue, isn't it? You know, that's the narrative. That's the way that most people see it. You know, I'm going to heal, so I'm going to do this. You know, I'm going to interfere with the healing process, and I'm going to keep on picking at the scab of the wound, thinking for some reason that that's going to help us heal. That's the traditional narrative. Now, most people wouldn't see it like that. Most people wouldn't see it like that, and therefore I didn't see it like that.
Right. And so I just want to add in something. So the healing, what we're saying is that it's not like you don't do the healing in a transformation. The issue is that you get stuck and you cycle in it instead of realizing that healing is a moment to moment awakening of who you are not and who you truly are. It happens in the moment.
It happens in the moment, and we don't make it happen. Our egos don't make it happen. There's no commander in the brain making this happen. It happens to us. It happens to us through insight. It happens to us through remembering.
Remembering
that we are the diamond, not the poo-poo that we've been through.
Yes, beautiful. And that's where healing can sometimes go wrong, because people can be like, I've been at this for 4, 7, 22 years, and I'm still where I was back then. So it's a very fine balance between the discovery of I am a diamond. My work is to do everything to realize that what doesn't show me that I'm the diamond is what needs the healing, so that I can be that light that I truly am.
Yeah,
otherwise we cycle and spin, right?
So I see this in a far more left brain way than you, Daniela. You're far more nuanced and far deeper, and I respect that.
Thank you.
I see it ultra simply. Maybe it's just because I'm a simple guy, and I didn't need to heal until I thought I'd been wounded. You know, I read I'd done a lot of healing like 11 years ago, and then 6 years ago I found this Nancy Verrier book, Primal Wound. Okay, and I didn't realize that I didn't think I was wounded. So if I didn't think I was wounded, I didn't think I needed to heal. And it's what is wounded? What is wounded? What is it that's primarily wounded? So you could say, well, you know, a wound is a cut. Well, it wasn't quite like that, because it was more like it was my feet. You know, adoption hurt my feelings. Adoption wounded my feelings. So it was almost like it wounded my ego. You know, how dare she? What was wrong with her? And obviously I found that this was totally wrong. I'm laughing now, but I was totally wrong when I blamed her, when my ego blamed her, and when my ego, so my ego blamed her, and then it turned in on me, and I'm not good enough. And you know, I'd been thinking I wasn't good enough for most of my life for different reasons. So you know, I wasn't good enough. I failed my driving test. I didn't have didn't have the girlfriends, or I got dropped from the rugby team, or I only didn't do well at my school, or didn't do well at university. Not being good enough was a theme that ran all the way through my life, and it runs through everybody's life. Nobody thinks that they're good enough, you know, at times. And with the adoption thing, you know, as adoptees, we've got a really good reason. We've got a really compelling basis for our belief that we're not good enough because somebody gave us away. Right. So seeing that, realizing that as not the truth, seeing that as a lie, really seeing it, like getting it in our bones, not just like as a nice idea, as an intellectual construct in our heads, but in our bones. That, oh yeah, that diamond, yeah, I guess we're a diamond, yeah. No, really, no, really, we are all diamonds, all different shapes, but all essentially perfect. Underneath all the stuff that we've gone through, underneath all the feelings of rejection, underneath all the feelings, all the anger that I had, all the feelings of rejection that I had, that beyond our psychology, to the essence of who we truly are, the ghost in the machine, the spirit, the unlimited potential, the perfection. We're not the voice. We're not the voice in our heads. We're the one that is listening to the voice in our heads. And then the ego comes in and tries to shut up the voice in the head. And that just escalates the battle. Right. We've got a most uncivil civil war. We're battling with ourselves. We are the diamond arguing with the the diamond arguing with the SH1T.
Yeah, this gets into the selves, the energetic selves, and the parts, what we call parts of the psyche, which we won't go into today because it's just going to get very complicated. But I think this is a good, where we're going with this is really creating a very clear picture. You know, what you said so far is very clear. So what was it like for you, the process of realizing that, oh, I have this dialogue, you know, this thing inside of me that says I'm not good enough because of all these reasons, right? Not making the rugby team, being given away, not getting all the girls that you liked. When did you realize that that was something that was dragging you down? Like, how did you make that distinction between, oh, this isn't me, this is a voice in my head that's been programmed, I've programmed into myself, society has programmed into myself, because society sees, oh, you're good when you get all the girls, when you are high academic at a high academic, it's all surface external stuff. And like you said at the beginning, well, how come then the stars? How come super celebrities? How come super Olympic athletes? And I work with these people. How come they still feel like crap at the end of the day, even when they've won their gold medal or they've gotten their Oscar? They have it in their hand. Why do they go home and they fall apart and they do the drugs because something inside of them is still not good enough?
Well, it's a seeing job. It's an uncovering job. So how did I see it? Well, somebody told me about it. This guy called Richard Wilkins told me about it. So I went to, this is when I'm like 40, in my 40s. I went to a business event and they had this guy, and it's like a inspirational speaker guy. And he explained, and he told his story. So he told his story of going from a laborer on a building site to a millionaire property developer, and showed how, you know, a picture of his mansion with all his Ferraris, Lamborghinis, and Porsche lined up, and saying, this didn't make me happy. And I thought, that's me. I didn't have I didn't have the cars or the mansion that he had. I had it on a smaller scale. You know, I had a nice house, a nice wife, and a nice car, but not on his scale. But I could see that, I could see myself in his story, which is why I share my story. So I heard somebody talking about it. So the people watching us or listening to us on the audio of this recording, I'm hoping that one of those people hearing it will see themselves in this, in what we're discussing. So I heard a glimpse of it. I saw a glimpse of it. I saw a glimpse of that, and then spent some time with this guy and his partner. We spent a week looking at, you know, what is this voice in our head, listening to it, sharing what it told us, like a group of 8 of us, sharing what the voice in our head told us, being vulnerable enough to share our inner rantings, to realize that it wasn't the truth, and to realize that everybody's got a voice in their heads. None of these people were adopted apart from me, but they all had the voice in their head that's saying it's not good enough. We all have it. You know, one of the, this is a spooky one. So one of the, Liz, who leads the course with Richard, she was abused, right? She wanted to be adopted because if she'd been adopted, she would have been away from the guy that was abusing. So it's a seeing job, But we live in a world where we think it's a doing job. You know, we've got to do this and we'll be happy. Do this and we'll be okay. Do this and we heal. And it's not. It's we're being. So seeing this will make us, seeing our perfection, getting a glimpse of the perfection. And I guess that, you know, I'm looking at the time here. We've been talking about this stuff for 20 minutes. I spent a week doing this. With Richard and Liz. And I've spent 12, 13 years looking at this stuff, being patient, hanging out for insights, seeing it more clearly. So if there's any frustration out there amongst the viewers or the listeners, then how do we do stuff? We do stuff over time. Stuff happens over time. The penny drops, the insight arrives, the shift happens internally in our thoughts. But we're also impatient, aren't we? Tell me what to do now. Well,
yeah,
hang out
I
on the
want
bus
to fix
for
it
insight.
now. Right. So it's an organic process. What you're saying is it's an organic process of the uncovering, right? Allowing that light to keep shining so that you realize that that's your true identity and not the voices, the voices, right, in your head.
We are not the voices in the head. We're the one that hears them. And I can't put it any simpler than that. We are not. How can we be something that we were born without? You know, people talk about all the stuff in the womb and, you know, that happens in the womb, and but we're not, and the depth and all that, and yeah, I'm sure that it is. That people say the body keeps score. The body keeps score, but the body doesn't come with a voice in its head. The body doesn't come with a voice in its head. It comes empty. It arrives. We arrive empty, and then we pick up the stuff from the world around us, and then we join in, and we think that the rubbish that we pick up from society, from the kids in the playground, from the kids that say that we're not good enough, from the teachers that say we're not good enough, from the and this didn't happen to me, but you know, I hear it. So from the people that say, well, you weren't good enough because you were given away. What was wrong with you? Why did they give you away? I never had that, but I've heard people have been told that.
Wow. So that's really interesting, how their thinking is corrupted by whatever their own wounds are, because a stable, healthy, well-balanced, loving person would never say that to another human being. And this is where I think we need to create a distinction when people say, just because someone else says something, it's like we take it in and we make it ours. Because that belief is already there, and that's why we call them, you know, it's like you keep reconfirming the beliefs, and the beliefs go in deeper, 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 deeper until you do the uncovering process. Right?
Yeah. So yeah, I talked about this the week tonight about the fact that people start writing graffiti on our wall about us. Simon, you stink. Yeah, like in a playground sign away. Simon, you stink. And they write that graffiti on our wall, and we then start joining in. So we believe the rubbish that people tell us about us. Yeah, you're right. So you know, I had buck teeth. Okay, so yeah, I am ugly. Right? We start the graffiti. You talked about highlighting it, didn't you? So we highlight it. We highlight the graffiti of others. Yes, this is right, and then we start highlighting. We start writing our own stuff about ourselves, and that this just perpetuates the myth and the untruths that we tell ourselves. And before we know it, the whole wall is covered in nasty stuff. It's covered in nasty sayings about what we believe. But we aren't with the wall. We aren't what's written on it.
And here's where, yeah, I want to wedge myself in here exactly. And a very important piece to this is that we need to understand that a child's mind is highly sensitive. It absorbs everything that's going on around us. And so we believe the graffiti, we don't have that critical factor that says, wait a second, that's not me. Just because I have teeth like this, or just because I'm not on the rugby team doesn't mean I'm a failure, I'm a loser, I'm not good enough. Because a child's mind will absorb it. It believes everything it hears. That's the critical place that children are in. They're sponges from the time they're born up until 7, 8 years old. You know, where you're in that deep hypnotic, your brainwave state is in constant learning and absorbing. So you don't have that piece that comes up and says, no, that's not me.
No.
Most of the time, 80% of the time, we believe that. And if our parents aren't modeling their own self-love and their own self-responsibility, then it's really easy, because we see that they don't love themselves, that at some level they don't feel good enough.
Yeah.
And that's what perpetuates, and that's why we take in the graffiti even more.
Yeah, the graffiti gets passed on, and we've talked a lot about thoughts and stuff, but I think I think I remember that being dropped from the rugby team when I was about 12 or 13. So I want to tell you that it's 12 rather than 13, because for me it feels okay for a 12-year-old to be upset like this, but for a teenager, for a 13-year-old boy to be upset, to cry, I cried. I turned away from the others. I got dropped from the rugby team. I turned away, and I cried. This is emotional. This is emotional. We've been talking about the rational, the voice in our head, but this is emotional stuff. It's not always actually as it's not as always as it's something to do with as thoughts. It's emotions, it's feelings. It's the feeling. It's that feeling that bites and that hurts, and that memory gets stored with no rational stuff behind.
Yeah. So just before we close, did you want to share anything about something that was like an awakening for you, something that helped you realize that you weren't the graffiti? Did something personal happen to you? I know you said it was the course that you went on, but was there something more? Like you did that, and then did something else happen inside of you that helped you come to the understanding, to the realization that I'm not this, I'm actually the diamond?
So it's been that same learning at deeper and deeper levels.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been hearing other people saying that they feel the same, and their vulnerability in talking about that. So it's hard. One of my a mentor that I had a few years ago said it's hard to see the picture when we're in the frame, and it is hard to see the picture when we're in the frame. It's the truth, yeah. So when we hear other people talking about this stuff, and when we see other people behaving in ways that they wouldn't choose to think or feel, it's been an observation. It's been an observation of what's going on in other people, I think, because it's easier to see somebody else's stuff than it is our own.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly.
And there was one particular moment actually on this. This was 2011. So it was after I decided that I wanted to be a coach, and I went to see a guy, and he had previously, he'd helped me with some, I think he used to be a hypnotherapist, and then he became a kind of therapist, like life coachy sort of a guy. And I saw him in 2000, and he helped me with an issue. And I saw him, got back in touch with him years later, and he'd seen me for that issue. My best friend had died, and I was having problems sleeping, and he charged me £50 for a session. When I saw him 10 years later, 11 years later, and told him that I wanted to be a coach, he told me that I wasn't ready to do it. He said I had too much. I hadn't seen enough. I hadn't seen enough of my own diamond to do that. He said I had terminal issues, and he wanted to charge me £12,000 to do that. And I thought, what's going on here? I think this is called gaslighting now. I don't know whether that's the truth. Gaslighting. It's when people make you feel worse, stir up the pain to convince you that you've got a bigger problem. And if you've got if once they've convinced you you've got a bigger problem, then you'll write a bigger check. And I remember going home and being really upset by this guy. As I say it now, I think maybe he was trying to shock me. My mind's playing tricks on me now. Like, was he actually just trying to make me see this for myself? Or was it? I don't think so. I think he wanted the £12,000, right? So he stirred it up, and I came home and I thought, well, I was in like a bit of turmoil for a couple of days. I can't do what I want to do. And then I realized that not loving myself is, he told me I didn't love myself. And then I saw that every diamond loves themselves. The only part of us, and it's not even part of us, the SH1T, it's the SH1T around the diamond that doesn't love the diamond. And that really freed me. But yeah, it was largely to do with that money thing, you know. So how come a guy that went from 50 quid had gone from charging 50 quid an hour to 12,000? There's something doesn't stack up for me right about this. Something, I smelt something off, and then I felt something off.
Okay, so it could be, so let's just look at this for a moment. It could be that he's done an immense amount of healing work, and he knows his worth, and his expertise has grown immensely over the last 12 years, right? So it could be that, because that happens also. It's like you have experience in your body, you come to a certain level of being, and it's like, hey, I can charge more because I know what I'm worth. I know the level of transformation I can offer someone. This is a very important piece. And the next piece is even more important, is you and I and all of us need to feel in our hearts, in our bodies, if we're centered enough in ourselves to realize, is this person judging me or putting me down or diminishing me and making me feel bad because I'm coming to you with an issue? I have a problem that I need to resolve. Any counselor, coach, mentor, therapist, psychiatrist that puts people in a position in a very uncaring, very unloving way, and I wasn't there, so I don't know the tonality, I don't know the energetics behind this, you need to run out the door as fast as you can, because if they're going there and you feel the truth of that, something is really wrong here. I need to go. And I can't say this enough. There are people out there that aren't noble beings, right? However, if he was using it to push you, and I wouldn't use that, and I know that you don't use that in your practice, because what you're doing is, and part of it is, you go to someone with and this is where it gets really sticky. We often healing, we give our power away.
We're going to have to end it there. The signal's just dropped out.
Oh, wow.
Sorry, guys. See you all again soon. Daniela's just frozen at the other end. See you again soon.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Bye. Oh, she's come back. Bye.
Oh, wow. Does it have a time limit? I didn't realize.